Nurse Alice Benjamin is joining us. She's also known as America's favorite nurse.
We have to be careful because this will open the floodgates and open Pandora's box.
Not only is the beet good at helping to bring your blood pressure down, this is nature's Viagra. What I really want viewers to know is don't throw your coffee cup away just yet. It's really important that we as healthcare professionals take the time to decontaminate these things. When it comes to pancreatic cancer, it's the fourth leading cause of cancer death. And stage 4 is basically the most advanced stage of cancer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nurse News Now with Nurse Alice here on Facebook with nurse.org. I'm your host, and I'm so excited to be here, as I am every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Happy New Year, right? It's a new year, new me, hopefully new situations when it comes to nursing and what's ahead of us. Because although 2020 was the year of the nurse, I say, we keep it going. We keep it the year of the nurse because nurses, we have been doing so much. And I want to applaud everyone for all of the work that you're doing, whether you are in nursing school, taking prerequisites to become a nurse, you're a practicing nurse, you're a retired nurse and that's decided to come back and help in any way and fashion. I thank you. The general public thanks you. The world thanks you because you guys are doing so much work today. And I'm so proud to be a nurse. So we have an excellent show lined up for you today. I'm really excited. I have some special guests. We're family here. We have Nurse Julia and the Paramers. You guys know them from Instagram. They'll be joining us later today to talk about high-paying travel contracts. Some nurses are making over $10,000 per contract. But of course, these are some pretty high-risk assignments. So is it worth it? And what comes with all that? So they're going to join the conversation to help us better digest that. As well, we'll be talking about the whole COVID vaccine rollout. How's it going? The goal was initially to have 20 million people vaccinated by January, and we're just shy of 5 million. So what's going on with that? And how can we as nurses help to make that a better situation? And you know what? With that rollout, I have to say, and I will get into this later, but I feel like nurses, had we been entrusted with designing the rollout process, I think we'd be a lot further along. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first up, I have a fun video that I want to share with you because it's going to go along with what we're going to talk about today. So check this out.
We did it. We did it, Joe. Nurses, most trusted profession. We did it, Joe. We did it.
So congratulations, nurses. Yes, for the 19th year in a row, you have been voted the most trusted profession. So that's a lot to celebrate. I wish I had some like bells and whistles and some sound effects because I definitely would be making lots of noises for you. I'm really excited about that. And just to show you how awesome nurses have been, not just this past year, but several years, I want you to take a look at this photo. Take a look at these trends. Look at that. Last 20 something years, nurses, we are that top gray line. We have been voted the most honest and ethical professions, which translates to being the most trusted. Can you blame people for wanting to vote us in like that? I mean, we're just the largest segment of the healthcare workforce. We're there 24/7, 365 days out of the year, holding hands, helping people to the bathroom, everything and anything that you can do to take care of someone. We have been trusted with caring for people in their most vulnerable stages of life, whether that's entering life, if you're in the labor and delivering, to maybe sometimes holding someone's hand when they're taking their final breath. We are there, and we have been the most trusted profession. So, you know what? Congratulations. Don't we love the Gallop Polls? I mean, and mind you, there's no conflict of interest. We are not paying the Gallop Polls anything. So it's truly objective and, legit. But I think it's very much worth saying, congratulations, nurses. You guys have been doing an awesome job, have risen to the occasions. And the polls show. So it's all in the data, right? Everything's evidence-based. There's some evidence. And I would think that being that trusted profession over so many years kind of makes us superheroes. I think so. And speaking of superheroes, take a look at this. So, have you guys ever seen a comic book with nurses in it? I think that finally, we're starting to see something where the real life heroes are getting to be recognized in the comic book world of superheroes. And I think that's great. And although we don't wear colorful costumes or swing from rooftops or climb tall buildings without a rope or in a single leap, although I think that we could, because, you know, nurses, we're really good at stuff. And we don't go by catchy monikers like Captain America, Black Panther, or She-Hulk, although we may on Instagram. But every day in the communities across our nation, you all nurses are performing heroic work and often at great risk to yourselves, and all to help take care of patients, even in very highly contagious and dangerous situations. You nurses work long shifts, and many of you with young families and caring for aging parents. You pray alongside families who can't be at the bedside with their loved ones at the end of life. And we do some drastic things for our patients, and we do some drastic things to get the job done. So some of you all, and there's actually a nurse who's done this, may even shave your head. So that's one less thing you have to worry about as you're taking care of your patients. And because COVID-19 has swept the US, impacting millions of people and leaving over 350,000 people dead, these are some very hard times for you. I know you're working hard. You're working with limited resources. You're making a way out of no way. And not only do I appreciate you, but the United States, the world appreciates you. And the world is realizing that nurses truly are some real-time heroes. And I have several colleagues who I could name that are truly heroes in my eyes. And because you guys are so much heroes, I mean, it's captured the attention of so many people, so much so that Marvel has partnered with Allegheny Health Network to honor nurses in their new Marvel comic book series called The Vitals. Now, I have a guest who's going to be coming to chat with us about this collaboration, Tracy Hines. She's a nursing manager at Allegheny Health Network. But first, I want you to take a look at this very touching video of her and her colleagues with their family talking about or showing the comic book to their families. Take a look at this.
Our mom, my dad, and my mom is a nurse. She takes care of people. I'm worried if COVID might get him.
Sometimes it's like we wake up and see her, and sometimes we don't.
What if she gets COVID?
We didn't see her for like 2 months. My dad is super brave.
And she's working her butt off just to help other people.
She's working very hard.
She helps people who are really sick.
It makes me feel good that she's being able to help.
It's a comic book. Marvel.
The Vitals.
True nurse stories.
That one looks like my mommy.
She's sick.
Today she says she has a surprise and tells me to close my eyes.
When I finally take a small pee,
I see my family for the first time in a week.
Just doing my job, she replies.
And she smiles at me with those smiling eyes.
Sorry.
Remind me of how I do help people and make people better.
Yeah?
You're a hero?
You're my hero.
Oh my gosh, that's so touching. I literally was about to cry again. I've cried watching that. But please welcome to the show, Tracy. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi, Alice. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. That's very touching. And I believe that's, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it gives me all the feels because that's the art of caring that we finally see. Nurses, we do so much for others, but to see, the family members and the children with their parents acknowledging that they're heroes was something very special. So, can you tell us a little bit about how this collaboration came to be?
Sure. It was actually really interesting in the beginning because they had asked us, those of us with children under age, like 12 and under, if our kids wanted to participate in like a kids say the darndest thing. So they really didn't tell us in the beginning what it was about. And my 11-year-old, he's usually kind of a jokester. So I was like, oh, he'll be good at this, So I really didn't, I put our name in and everything. I didn't think we were going to get picked, but we did. So and then they sent us everything to tape, and they're asking questions, and they started asking the kids questions about your mom as a nurse or your dad's a nurse and how is that, and everything about what they thought. And then whenever we finally they told us they kept the comic book in a sealed envelope when they sent us certain things to film with, and because everything was done by Zoom just because of COVID reasons. But so they had sent it in a sealed envelope, and they told us not to open the envelope until they instructed us to. So we really just found out whenever we opened it. That's when everybody realized what was going on, and we pulled it out, and I was like, oh wow, a comic book. And I thought it was a comic book for the kids. I really still didn't dawn on me what it was about until we started looking at it and reading it. And as we were reading it, I was in my head, I'm like, wait, this is really something. I mean, and then I had to look at the front again because I'm like, Marvel and AHN, that's the Allegheny Health Network, AHN partnered together to do this. It still kind of didn't dawn on me. Sometimes I'm not the sharpest tack.
So you all didn't know that this was actually going to be a comic book?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, we found out like those are real reactions whenever they play that video. That's all real. We all opened it as we were filming, and yeah, we didn't know anything about it. Yeah.
Let me ask you, because you're a nurse manager, I imagine you oversee lots of staff, you know, the work conditions in your hospital. I mean, now that this magazine has come out and, obviously it's your employer who worked and collaborated with Marvel. What has it been like in your unit, in your workplace, for people to now kind of see that, wow, Marvel has partnered with our employer and has recognized us as true superheroes, actual true superheroes?
It's pretty amazing because, like you had mentioned before, it was the year of the nurse, and I think that there was so many celebrations planned for nursing in 2020, and then all this hit. So, and we have a second wave coming now, and so everybody's really stressed and overworked and emotionally stressed and physically stressed. And so when they brought this out, it was like early December, I think it was, when they put it out. Everybody in the hospital was just amazed, and everybody was talking about it. Everybody was kind of flying high on, like thinking, wow, this is amazing that our employer would do this. It just makes you feel valued, and it makes you feel appreciated. And that's the words I heard a lot of the nurses saying.
Yeah. And I bet it comes at a time where morale can probably be low at times, considering the work conditions. How are things, considering COVID and everything that's happening? How are your nurses and your staff holding up?
Well, nurses are resilient. So we just find a way to do it. I'm not also going to sugarcoat a lot of it either. A lot of us are stressed, and a lot of people are feeling it, and just maybe the morale maybe isn't as good as it was. But I don't think that's I think that's just because of what's happening with COVID. It's not for any other reason. It's just that it's been going on so long that I think we needs a break. What's that?
We're fatigued.
Yes.
We're getting tired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We are.
we are. Now, so this initial comic book came out. Now, are there plans for like a series? I understand that there are 8 nurses who are followed in this superhero story. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the other characters, or what we can expect to see in 2021 when it comes to the Vitals?
They haven't said anything, although, I really think that it would be really great if they would also honor the other heroes in the hospital setting, the housekeepers,
Oh yeah.
the transporters, the nursing assistants. They're all in there too, and we certainly couldn't do any of this without all of them. So it would be really nice if they could do something like that. My son also said maybe a movie would be nice.
Oh, I'd love to see a movie. And nurses, can you imagine that? Like, isn't that how it usually starts? It goes from comic book and then it goes into a movie. Yeah, I think that would be great. Maybe we can talk to your boss about getting, I don't know who we work with. The Marvel family. Oh, could you imagine that nurses in there with? I think it's doable. I think it's doable.
I agree.
So, before I let you go, just I think this was a great gesture. It's definitely some feel-good material to help inspire nurses, especially during this time when sometimes we're feeling a little bit low. I know as we were watching that video, one of the nurses was reading the comic books to the kids, and they mentioned, I hadn't seen their parent in weeks and things like that. I mean, any parting words of encouragement for, I know you're a nurse manager of your unit, but let's make you a universal nurse manager right now on Facebook. What would you say to the thousands, millions of nurses and nursing students out there during this time?
Well, I would probably say what I tell my staff all the time is that we decided to go into this profession for a reason, and people need us. And we need to be strong, and we're in this together, and nobody's here by themselves. And so if we all work together, we can make differences. Nurses make things happen all the time, and we figure out ways to make things happen. So let's just all go out. Let's make this happen. Let's get this done. Let's get it over with, and let's move on.
There you go. Well said, from a true nurse leader. Tracy, I want to thank you, your employer, who, by the way, you guys are located in the greater Western Pennsylvania region. Let's see, among the network, 300 clinical locations, 13 hospitals, and 5 health and wellness pavilions. You guys are big. Gosh. And it says also home to a comprehensive research institute, home and community-based health services, and a group purchasing organization. You guys have over 20,000 people, 2,400 doctors on staff. Gosh, you guys are big. I imagine you guys are doing a lot of work, and Pennsylvania is probably very fortunate to have you servicing their greater communities.
Thank you. I wouldn't work for anybody else. I truly wouldn't.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And you guys, I've put Tracy's title and information up there. And if you want to, as you should, check out the Vitals. The stories can be viewed on ahn.org/the Vitals. So Tracy, thank you so much. We will continue watching. Fingers crossed. We got a movie in the works.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Oh, wow, guys. Could you imagine? Listen, I want to be one of the superheroes. Okay, I don't know. I think I'll have like a big A on my cape for Alice, Nurse Alice. I think that's what we're going to do. Gosh, we kind of just got absorbed in that conversation. That was some good stuff. Nurses, you guys really, truly are superheroes. Just real quickly, I wanted to tap into a topic before I bring in my guests. You guys, we have been, obviously amidst COVID, we have this vaccine that's been rolled out, or at least slowly, maybe it's a trickle. It looks like more like a slow trickle going out. Just no shade, no diss. A vaccine is very important. It's a very important tool in our toolkit in our war against COVID-19. We have had over 356,000 deaths, 21 million infections here alone in the United States. And I am based here in Los Angeles, which is now being considered the epicenter I don't know, FEMA said it's one of the most dangerous places to live. At least that was the headlines as of yesterday. The COVID vaccine is taking a toll not only on the public, but also wearing down our hospital healthcare system and our resources. And we've actually began some discussions, as with other places, about rationing care. And I'm hoping we don't have to go there. But part of, in addition to encouraging the public to social distancing, wearing your mask, washing your hands, avoiding large crowds, and all of those things, and staying home when they're sick, is a vaccine. Now, the Trump administration originally had a goal of 20 million people vaccinated by January. We are at a slow trickle of less than, if you look at different resources, it'll let us say anywhere from 4 to 5 million people have received their vaccines. However, many of the vaccines are here, but they haven't been distributed. So we got to figure out where the bottleneck is. But it's because we have vaccines, we have people that want to receive them. So I'll do this. But somewhere in the middle, where it's not working, it's not happening. So I think that's probably a topic we'll have to come back and revisit to get into like the weed of things as to what's happening. But I want to say this. I know 2020 was the year of the nurses. Nurse Alice is claiming it. 2021 continuation, part B, year of the nurses. I definitely would want to encourage any nurses out there, if you're looking for, not that you don't have things to do. I know you got stuff to do, child. I know you do. And you're probably trying to go back to school too. But if any of you are interested, I think this is an excellent opportunity for nurses, the natural born leaders that you are, to step up to the plate and offer your services, your skill set and your knowledge to your local governments. Maybe connect with your mayor, maybe connect with your council members, maybe connect with some type of community partner and talk to them about helping to design or lead their vaccine rollout. Because I'm gonna tell you this, if a nurse had planned this, we'd be in a whole different situation. So again, no shade, no diss to our politicians and our government officials and all the people in public health. We love you too, boo, I get it. But no one like nurses knows how to design a rollout. We know how to roll it out. Believe me, we do. Trust. But anyways, I won't go into any more detail with that, just because it's going to take a lot more time to get into the politics and the details of why we can't get our vaccine to the end users, because they're there. We got to use them really soon or they will expire. And then that's wasted federal dollars on vaccines. But just the way governors and folks are going about it right now, it doesn't seem like the right way to do it. Punishment is not the thing to do. It sounds like they want to penalize hospitals, fine hospitals for not doing their job. Listen, sir, ma'am, we are in here saving lives. Which one you want us to do? You want us to save the lives, intubate and save the lives, or you want us to give the vaccine? Let's talk about this and roll this out and use our community partners, our medical students, our nursing students, other health allied people to get this done. But I think we can get it done. But I think it's going to need a nurse at the helm. So that's just a question. That's something that I just want to put out there. But I do want to tap into our next topic, guys. I think we're going to be talking about this for quite some bit. I know y'all are really, really, really excited about it. Hold on, let me get my notes because I am so excited about this. We have two amazing guests that are joining us this evening. We have Nurse Julia. She's an Atlanta-based family nurse practitioner who's passionate about health promotion and disease prevention. And she's also the founder of the Nurse Link, a social enterprise that connects current, future, and aspiring nurses for mentorship, networking, and empowerment. So she'll be joining us, as well as Everett Moss, the paramurse. You guys have seen him on Instagram as well. Paramedic, registered nurse. He's in CRNA school. Like he's out there flight nursing and all that kind of stuff, saving people in helicopters and all kinds of stuff. So I want you guys to please welcome to the show, Nurse Julia and Everett. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good.
Good. So I'm so glad to have you guys on because you guys are very well experienced. You've traveled. You've been nurses for quite some time now. And I want to talk to y'all about these high-paying travel contracts. Okay, let me just put that out there because I'm seeing a lot of nurses out there you see the funny memes, you see the, fanning themselves with the $100 bills and doing this, and the next screen, they're like, hair is like this all on the unit looking crazy. What are your thoughts on high paying travel contracts? Julia, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for starters, I think my sentiment initially when the pandemic, initially happened and they were recruiting nurses, my first thought was that, nurses, we've always worked hard. We've always busted our butts for our patients, and we've always put ourselves at risk of exposure. So what we've been waiting on, it's about time. That was my initial sentiment, like, hey, we're finally getting paid what we're worth, right? So initially I thought it was extremely a good thing. And I was, actually shocked to see just how well they were paying nurses, but I obviously wasn't complaining.
Right. Okay. Everett, what do you think? What are your thoughts on these high-paying travel contracts that are out there? Because I'll say this, and I'll put the story in the chat box, guys. There was actually a nurse, I believe, let's see, she actually is debt-free. She's sharing her secrets. She paid over $67,000 off in debt by taking travel assignments. Wow. What do you think about that?
So I agree with Julia. I mean, my initial thoughts are, if you're going to be home doing the same work for far less pay, if your circumstances allow, like Julia said, it's kind of what we've been waiting on. If your circumstances are allowing for it, and you are prepared mentally for what you're going into, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. Now,
well, hold on, Everett. You said that you're prepared to go into. Now, so I've been a nurse for quite some time. I've been a nursing instructor, part of leadership. And so without saying exactly how long, well, I've been a nurse for 23 years. Let's just put it out there. I see a lot of people who want to become travel nurses who are like, don't even have that first job yet. It's like, oh, I want to be a travel nurse. And as soon as that 1-year mark hits, they're ready to travel and do all these things. What would you say to, and either of you, what would you say to that nurse who's been a nurse for 1 year and sees that $10,000 travel contract and says, oh, I want to do that? What are your thoughts?
Julia, go, you can go first.
Honestly, I would have to say to tread lightly. In full transparency, when I went to New York, it was my first travel assignment, and travel had always been something that I aspired to do, but never just got around to try and get out. I have a ton of nurse friends who are travel nurses, but me myself hadn't gone before the pandemic. But as a preceptor for over 5 years, that part of me says tread lightly, because I know that transition, how important that is in the first 1 to 3 years for a nurse. And so while it may be a great opportunity, it might not be best for everyone. Obviously, some new nurses advance or transition faster than others. And it really comes down to a personal choice and one of true self-awareness and evaluation. So, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll jump onto that. First off, pandemic nursing and travel nursing are two separate things. I mean, similar, but very separate. One of the things I told one of the travelers who was a new grad when he came to New York is, he wanted to be there to help. And I asked him the question, well, are you prepared to explain to a family when they've lost a loved one of his inability to help? So it's a lot to consider when you're going into this type of setting. But again, pandemic nursing is different from travel nursing. In some cases, having a new grad was better than the alternative, which was nobody. But it's it's just one of them things none of us have experienced. So you definitely need the experience, and you want to be comfortable when you're going into these settings. And there was no guarantee that they would be used in a tech capacity or a new grad capacity. So are you ready for that? That's the question that the new grads have to ask themselves when they're going into these settings.
So you raise a good point, and I'm glad you said this. So y'all, there's a difference between travel nursing and what did you call it? You said
pandemic.
Yeah. What are we calling it? Pandemic traveling.
Yeah, pandemic traveling. You can go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so two different things. Well, you know what? Some of these recruiters are very pushy, And I'm gonna say this, and they make it seem like this, oh, it's all bells and whistles, and it's all beautiful. And I won't say it's all beautiful because we can see what we see on television, but they make it very, very attractive for you. And I don't know, I've done travel assignments before, but I did this quite some time ago, and definitely not during pandemic. And I'll say this, I had worked at a cardiothoracic ICU, a hard, really tough unit, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to travel in the ICU. I'll travel and do tele or something else, just because not every hospital is the same. You can work in ICU at this hospital, but that ICU might be equivalent to another hospital's tele or step down. So when Julia, you said it best, tread lightly, definitely tread lightly, because just because you work in ICU here doesn't mean your ICU is the same as this ICU. And then you add a layer of pandemic to it, you're going to be in the corner crying, ready to go. Like, I don't care how much you pay me. And there are times, and you guys agree with me or not, but there have been times, even at regular work, I'm like, oh no, not today. I don't care what y'all paying. I'm not coming in today. I'm tired. So, but not everybody thinks like that. So what would you say if someone is considering, let's say, you know what, I've been a nurse for 2 years. I know, I've been at this one hospital for 2 years, and I know my stuff. Is this person ready to travel? What do you think? What would they need to know or do before they step foot into the travel world?
I think they would need to kind of assess, for one, the placement. I think you made a really great point, which is that hospitals aren't made equally. And some nurses have the great opportunity, I'll say, to work at academic or teaching institutions, which make a huge difference when it comes to having protocols and even supplies and resources and clinical nurse specialists at your disposal for, in services and, evidence-based practice. So all of those things really make a difference in your actual training. And like you said, if you're going into somewhere where maybe your training trumps the position to some extent or their level of care, then you may be okay. But if you've not maybe had the, opportunity to work in a hospital that trains you to that capacity, and you go there and they have all of these standards that you can't necessarily acclimate to in a short time, then you may be in a bad situation. So I think first off, understanding and doing some research, like, okay, where is it that you want me to go? What's going to be expected of me? Does that match up to what I've learned and what I know and what I could, bring to the table?
Okay, very good. Now, Everett, let me ask this, because usually when you do a travel contract, there's just like a little checklist, 1 through 5. What has been your experience? So it's kind of self-reported. What do I think my experience is? And I might be a new nurse, like, you know what? I'm all 5s because I just think that I'm that great. But then in the real world, I don't know that there's really, what do you call that? Inter-rater reliability when it comes to the 1 through 5, because my 5 might really be, Everett, you're 3, or Julia, you're 2, because of where you've worked. Right. Now, Everett, you mentioned that if you're a new grad, and for all intents and purposes, I'm going to say a new nurse is someone with less than 2 years of experience. I know we got some really advanced nurses who, 2 years, but I'm just going to, just for now, because I think that's, when you look at novice to expert, Bennett, I believe that's what she looks at the new novice nurse as. You said that they may not be used in that capacity, that new nurse capacity, if they go on a travel assignment. So what do you do? What if you are that newer nurse and you just like, you know what, the money looks good, I signed, I'm here, now what?
Right. So that's why I make the distinction between travel and pandemic. Again, in pandemic, sometimes you just need someone there capable of watching a patient that's a step above a sitter or, a tech, or who had the training beyond that of a tech. You would like to be in an area or a capacity of that novice nurse, but it's not optional in a pandemic. All hands on deck, and where you fall is where you fall. There was a lot of controversy about that when the pandemic traveling first started, because people were being placed outside of the areas. But I think a lot of people misunderstood what this was. With my background, I'm used to emergency management operations, and in those type of operations, sometimes you work outside of your norm. In travel nursing, as you mentioned, you do your rating and you end up working in your area of expertise or where you think you have expertise. And you can decline an assignment if you get there and it's not what you expected. In the pandemic, we really didn't have that option. You know, if I had extra ICU patients and I had nurses where I was full on the floor and I needed somebody to watch these ICU patients, and I got the nurses that were available. None of us like it, but that's, again, when you're walking into a pandemic, you have to have that mindset that anything goes. You know, the rates aren't that way because it's going to be what you're used to. It's not that way because it's going to be an easy day on the unit. It's that way because they're expecting you to get an assignment and take it and deal with it. And so if you're not comfortable taking care of patients, you still have to learn the charting system, the supplies, the operations. So when it goes back to what you were saying, when you're ready to travel, if you still get patients that you're uncomfortable with on your home unit, then you may not need to go travel, because that facility may see a totally different acuity level than you're used to. So you need to be comfortable within your own unit and even floating within your own hospital. If you're not comfortable floating within your own hospital, you probably don't need to travel.
That's actually a good tip. And I'll say this, before I took a travel assignment, I was the nurse so I worked in ICU, and then I would be the first to float. Nobody ever likes to float. I'm like, no, I'll float. And then I made friends on all the units. So I liked it, right? More a social reason why I did it, but I also wanted to stay on my toes with the ever-changing environment, because it's not even just the patients that you're taking care of. Where the simplest things can get you stuck. Where's the med room? Where's the crash cart? You know, where's the tape? Like, those little things can be barriers. So you could have a rock awesome nurse, but just even those little things. So I know that in my experience, I've learned to ask as soon as I go to a unit, okay, where's the crash cart? Where's the supply room? Where's the med room? Where's the bathroom? That's all I need to know. All those are the rooms. And then the nursing care I could do. But Everett, you also made a good point about if you're on your current unit and you're taking care of patients and you're still struggling there, what would you guys recommend for someone who wants to break through that and actually even see a different population? Because let's say you're on a stroke unit. You see strokes all day. You might see some other neurological things, but that's all that. But you want to travel. So how am I going to get that experience under my belt? You mentioned floating, but should I ask to be cross-trained to another unit? What would you guys suggest?
I think that, like you said, how you would travel to other units and meet people. Networking is huge for our industry. And if people haven't realized that, then you haven't been paying attention. But going to other units, when I was at one particular facility, I was considering going to another unit. So I called or introduced myself to the manager and asked to shadow one of their nurses on their units. And when you're inside your own facility, it's a little bit easier to pick up a shadow shift or an orientation shift in another unit so that you can start to learn those operations. But you mentioned cross-training. Cross-training is definitely what you need to do, in my opinion, if you want to start traveling. It's a way to break through those barriers, get outside of that comfort zone, start seeing different equipment used in different ways, because if anybody's been nursing long enough, you know that there's a different way to do certain things that you may not have ever learned if you were only on your unit.
Okay. Now, do certifications help? What are your thoughts on getting certifications? Is that let's say I try to float, but they just float me to a truly sister unit and I'm not getting that experience. Would it help if I tried to get a certification? Will that knowledge help prepare me for travel nursing? Julia, what are your thoughts?
I think it will help, prepare you as a better nurse. But if you don't have the opportunity to apply that certification or have that hands-on experience with those patients, then I would say no. It's kind of like having your CPR card, but you really don't know if you know how to do compressions and real CPR or effective CPR until it's time to do it, right?
Oh yeah, that's everything.
Kind of along the lines of that. But like Everett said, cross training. Lots of times, on your unit, even if you're in a specialty, you may get a patient who, because you have a bed, not your typical patient. Look for opportunities to, take those patients or heavier assignments just to kind of gauge where you're at. So,
okay. Good. So for those of you who are watching, we have the paramnurse Everett, and we have Nurse Julia here with us, giving us all the tea, the tips that you need to prepare yourself to travel. So I've heard float, cross train, certifications, helpful, but you still need the hands-on experience and networking. Okay, so let's say I've gotten that down. I've done some of those things. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to do travel nursing. But as Everett pointed out, this isn't travel nursing, this is pandemic nursing. How does anyone really prepare for a pandemic? Because Everett, let's see, you have background of paramedic, flight nursing, like all of those things. So I know how it's like a battlefield. I don't know. In my mentality, working in the ER is like a battlefield sometimes, and especially now. I don't know that I would have been able to do that as a newer nurse without that ER experience. How does someone roll into situations that are like really, your resources are low, you're out of ratio? And by the way, I believe California is the only state that has mandated ratios. That's out the water, just so you know. Don't think, I'm gonna come to California and I got these nice ratios. In emergency, that's out the window. But let's say I'm from California. ICU 2 patients, tele unit 4 patients, maybe med-surg top is 5. I go to another state in the ICU. I've heard, there was a gentleman on Instagram, and I forget his name, but he was an ICU nurse, came from California, went to New York, had 5 ICU patients. What do you do with that? What do you do?
The best you can. In pandemic nursing, you can say, oh, well, this is not what I'm used to. This is what I do back home. Again, this is a pandemic, people. I'm not telling you to be unsafe. I'm not telling you to just accept anything, but I am telling you that this is a pandemic. And if you're not watching them, if everybody on the unit has 5, I would hope you all wouldn't collectively decide that you're going to only watch these 2 or 3. It is truly a pandemic nurse. And so I'm just doing the best I can. And I got asked that question when I was on my way to New York. What if you have 8 patients? I'll take care of them one at a time. That's all you can do if I have 8 patients. But if it's not me, then who? And with this, it's more of a mentality. It's not anything you learned in the books. It's not anything the state has told you about, because none of us have done this before. So you have to have the mentality that I'm truly going here. Sure, I'm getting paid to go, but I'm going here to help. And if I'm not here to help, then why am I going?
Okay. You raised some good points. And I'll say this, we've had some nurses. Let's see, we have Allison. If you're in Florida, you only get 2 ICU patients, medical surgical. I have seen people have 6 patients.
Yeah, I think that's normal. I think that I'm assuming that's normal, because if a pandemic hit that same hospital right now, like you said earlier, that's out the window. You don't have a choice. If I have 5 of my nurses out with COVID, and now the hospital is full and only 3 showed up to work, that ratio has to change.
Yes. And let me also talk about this, and thank you for helping us transition the conversation. So you made good points. You do the best that you can do. So have some grace for yourself, right? You're only one person. You can only do what you can do. Okay, I'll get that. But sometimes in these work conditions, when you're overworked, understaffed, and you can sometimes feel rushed because of those environmental things. You can feel rushed, and when we rush, we know that increases the opportunities for mistakes. So possibly, did you really wash your hands the way you're supposed to? Did you really, that mask? All those type of things. You're entering into units that are full of patients who are suffering from COVID-19. We actually had another guest who was supposed to join us this evening, and she was a travel nurse, and she actually got COVID from a travel assignment. She wasn't well enough to be with us, so we're gonna wish her well. But there are these high-paying contracts. Some of these work conditions are really beyond what you're normally used to, and you run the risk of exposing yourselves in these environments. Is it really still worth it? is it still worth the $10,000 travel assignment? Either of you?
For me, I'm sorry. For me, I say it still is worth it, only because at my home hospital would have potentially been experiencing the same workload, would have potentially still been exposed to the same degree of exposure. And I actually came back positive from one of the travel assignments. I'm one of those asymptomatic folks, so I didn't even know if I hadn't taken the test. But for me and my circumstance, it was still worth it, simply because I would have been doing the same type of work if I was here at home.
Okay, so you might as well. You're gonna have to do the work anyway, so you might as well get the higher salary for that. Okay, so I can see that point. Julia, what do you say to that?
I have to agree with that 100%. Initially, when at the time that I decided to go and help out on my unit, my background is heme onc, and I was working as a nurse practitioner in hospital, in the hospital setting. And initially, all of the patients, we weren't doing any transplants, and we're trying to keep patients out. But eventually, the COVID patients started trickling in. The census was low, which is why I decided to go, because I felt I could better use, my services elsewhere, since our census was low. But at the point that the COVID patients did start coming in, it became inevitable that all nurses everywhere, the peak initially was in New York, but, we all may face it at some point. And as we can see, that's gone on to happen. We've gone on to see numbers increase everywhere and hot spots pop up everywhere as well. So I have to mirror Everett's sentiment on that.
Okay. Now let me just ask this question. So Everett, I'm glad that you were, that you've recovered and you didn't have any, didn't sound like you had any true issues from COVID other than testing positive because you were asymptomatic. Now, but not everyone's going to be as lucky as you are. For example, our other guest who was supposed to be with us this evening, she, and I'll say this, here in Southern California, our ICU capacity is 0. Like, beds are full. Like, they got overflow. The other day, they floated me to the peds unit. And I'm like, I'm doing the peds unit. I get there, it's all adults. So I'm like, okay. So it's just full, right? It's super, super full. But because our ICU, she was doing a travel assignment here in Southern California, because she knew she was sick, but because she knew our ICU capacity was low, she actually got in her car and drove all the way back home to like 2-3 states over so she could get care. Fortunately, she was able to get there, but I worry that not everyone is going to be strong enough or in that good enough health to do that. So if you're going to roll the dice and go for this high-paying assignment, is that something that you should talk to your family about first before you do it? Or I mean, like, are there certain conversations you should have before you actually say yes to the recruiter?
Absolutely. And I obviously can't speak on this in any great detail, but I know for a fact that there were unfortunately several nurses who had traveled to New York who didn't make it back home to their families. And so I think, yes, that's definitely a conversation that you need to have with your loved ones, because, no different than if you were working, obviously, at a home unit, but still, we put ourselves at risk. That's what we've always done. And unfortunately, it can have detrimental consequences. So yes, conversations with family and friends and anyone that you love or care about is necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Everett.
I was just gonna say the same. I sat down. I talked to my wife first. Then I told my kids, and they were all. I mean, they kind of used to me doing, I guess, dangerous things. I was a firefighter and on a helicopter, so that part, I guess, they're kind of used to. But I had never been away from home this long. This last time, my mother actually cried when I told her I was going back again. So I mean, you need to have a conversation just so that everybody is aware. And then you have to make a decision as to whether or not, everybody's going to be comfortable with it. And,
Okay.
from there.
All right. Now I put this comment up from Courtney. She said, ask about paid COVID time off and when taking a contract, also ask about obtaining the COVID vaccine. So in your travel assignments, I mean, the COVID vaccine is new now, but are travel agencies offering COVID vaccine to their staff that are traveling? And do they, I imagine, I don't know about this paid COVID time off. Well, let me ask, maybe it's, if you get COVID on a travel assignment, does the travel agency comp you again somehow? Or is that part of the, well, you took the 10,000, that's on you?
So for me, when I came back with COVID, I've heard that it's changed. I have not read that read that myself. But when I got back, I went straight to a hotel to quarantine until I test. And when I found out I was positive, I actually got in touch with the travel agency and let them know, hey, I went straight to a hotel. That was the last place that I was. The only thing that I've done is go test, and I'm positive. So I got paid for my quarantine time and my hotel stay. Again, I've heard that that's changed. I'm not certain, but that was the case for me. And what was the other question?
COVID vaccine.
Yeah, the vaccine. Where I was, they wanted you to be there for 21 days, or 28 days, should I say, if you got the vaccine, so that you can get both doses there. But I know a few people who got the first dose and then they're hoping to get the second dose back home. I'm not sure how that affects everything, but I don't, in my personal opinion, like you said earlier, if nurses was rolling this out, it'd be a little bit different. Yes. I think you should be able to get the first dose wherever you are and get the next dose back home. I mean, especially if you're traveling for the pandemic.
You know what? You raise a good point, and I didn't even think of that. What do we do for our staff, our folks that are remote moving around? If you get it at one site, because they do want you to come back to that place to get it again. That's interesting. But I'm sure a nurse is going to figure this out for everybody. How we do. Now, there was another question. Someone said, do you know of anyone, because of these high-paying travel contracts, some people were like, oh, I quit, I'm out, deuces. I'm going to leave their employer straight out, sometimes not even 2-week notice. Travel assignment comes through like, oh, they liked you. Can you start next week? And they've chucked the deuces to their current employer, who's still suffering from COVID-19. So wherever you go, it's like rob Peter to pay Paul. Somebody's going to be left. But do you all know of nurses? And what do you say to nurses who are contemplating just chucking the deuces last minute and leaving?
I think it's something to really consider. For me, I was on contract at my hospital, and I kind of did the math. I had maybe 4 or 5 weeks left on my contract before I would be, before I would have to renew if I wanted to. So for me, I was already in a position where it gave me the flexibility to make a call like that and, decide to choose to go to New York to help out in a different area. However, yes, like you mentioned, lots of nurses use PTO to go. I had friends in different areas that were telling me that they were seeing some of their colleagues from from other hospitals kind of popping up there, and they're like, "Hey, I
thought you were sick. Wait a minute, how you?"
That type of thing. And then I even knew people who said they asked their employer if they could go and help out with the pandemic, and many employers I heard from the because they were. I think Everett, maybe you can better help me. But I think it was the upwards of maybe 15,000 plus nurses from all over the country. So you heard all kinds of stories, but I heard both. Many people literally thought that because they were trying to do a good thing and go and help out in the pandemic, that their manager would be welcoming and supportive and say, hey, go and help. And no, there were horror stories where they're like, okay, if you go, we know you're there and you're done. I think I met some person who was saying that their manager kind of threatened to call the board of nursing for abandonment. I heard some of everything. And then I even heard of some managers who said, you know what, right now our census is low, go, you have a place to come back to. So it really just kind of depends. I've heard it all. But if you're in a position where you don't have a lot of options, and what I mean by that is that maybe you're someone with limited experience, or say you're in a hospital system, for example, here in Georgia, Emory is a huge hospital system. And it used to be before a lot of their areas merged together, you had all of these options. But now, you know, you may want to think twice before leaving a huge hospital system, because you may not go way down the street and, you know, get another job so easily. So it just really comes down to, again, you know, those personal choices, you know, how much experience, how comfortable you are. Because I know people who went to help out in New York and they had limited experience, but now they've kind of been thrust into the travel nursing area because there's no going back. You didn't even have a year of experience before you left. So now you're kind of out there, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it just, like I said, comes into that personal choice, and, you know, the chips have to fall where they may, you know?
Exactly. So, which raises another question, because since we're in pandemic status, you know, all the rules we're making them up as we go. Let's just say that. Can new grads travel nurse? We're desperate. We need somebody who knows how to check a pulse, do a blood pressure, give a pill.
For desperate measures. And what I will say is, if, you know, because initially I think they were looking to allow nursing students and even med students temporary licenses. So I think if the climate got or gets desperate enough, I think Everett made the point earlier that they'll use you where they can, so to speak. So I mean, I think the climate would just maybe have to call for it, you know, be bad enough where it made sense.
I'd say the simple answer is yes. You know, they can travel nurse, but I just like we learned so much about delegation in nursing school. You have to be willing to know what you can and can't do. If you decide you want to travel nurse in this pandemic and you find yourself in a situation that you're potentially going to cause more harm than good, then you got to be willing to walk away. I mean, how important is the check to you? So that's the only thing that I would say. If you find yourself where you're a new grad and they said they were going to use you at a nursing home, but then you find yourself with a patient load in the ICU, I would hope that you would be responsible enough to say, hey, look, I can't do this. And if that means you got to go home, then you got to go home.
Exactly. So being honest, rather be honest and upfront versus potentially put yourself in a situation could harm someone else and jeopardize your license. And, you know, before we wrap up, I'm going to get to just a few more questions. What is considered a travel nurse? How far away do you have to go to travel? Like
I think it's 50 miles, most agencies. For my local contract, it was anyways.
I'd say in addition to that, it's rate and stipend dependent. You can travel nurse around the corner, but your rate and your stipend may be less than if you were outside those 50 miles. That's been my experience. If it's greater than 50 miles, it would come with this stipend or this lodging allowance. But if it was within 50 miles, you got the same pay rate, but you didn't get the mileage compensation or the lodging compensation.
Okay, so these are all good things. Listen, do y'all have a travel nursing book or something on this? Because these are some really great tips. I wish we could put all these together, because I don't know that there's a pandemic nursing guide, a survival guide. Listen, go ahead. One of y'all put it together. Look, you know what? Let me put one together real quick.
There's a few things that I've been working on. Just keep following the parameters.
Oh, good. So this has been a great conversation. I kept you way over than the time that I asked them for only 20 minutes. I kept them way longer than that, but this was such great information. So I'm glad they have been able to stay with us. Now, Julia and Everett, before you go, could you please tell us and our viewers where they can follow you, what you're working on, and how we can best support you? So Julia, ladies first, we'll go with you.
Gotcha. You guys can follow me at the Nurse Link or my organization page, or excuse me, follow me at the Nurse Julia or my organization's page at the Nurse Link. And I look forward to connecting with you guys. Coming soon, I'm going to be doing more mentoring myself and coaching. So I'll be sharing that information on my IG this week. So stay tuned.
Oh, good, because some of this is I'm sure they're going to funnel. They got some tea and tips here. They're like, oh, let's see what Nurse Julia has to say. Now, Everett, you said you gave us a little bit of a spoiler alert. I think you started saying keep following you because some of these things are coming. So tell us more about where we can follow you and what you got coming down the pipeline.
So right now, primarily, you can follow me on Instagram at _paramers. Right now, being in school, a lot of stuff is kind of dependent upon how heavy my school load is. But there's a lot of things I'm working on when it comes to, like Julia said, mentoring, coaching, a couple books in the works. Of course, continuing to promote the super CRNA.
Over 4 million registered nurses in the United States, nearly 1 million licensed vocational nurses. And we've been working at the front lines tirelessly,
I don't know how,
day and night.
I don't know how Dr.
Pandemic.
Fauci just kind of there we go. So sorry.
No worries. But yeah, that's it for the most part. Just check me out on the _Paramers on Instagram.
Okay. And Everett, you're in school. So kudos to you for going to school, because it sounds like you've done travel nursing and you're in school and you're working on all of these other things, and family.
Yeah. I'm, school. I've taken a step back from a lot of it once school started, because for anybody who knows, CRNA school, of course, is full time, not without the option to go part time. And as I continue to go along, my load will get heavier, once we get into clinicals and class, which will happen in the summertime. So I just got off my last real break is about to end, and until August 2023, I'll be tied up. Yeah.
Wow. Well, good luck with you in school. We definitely could use more CRNAs. You guys play a very, very important role. And for those of you who are watching, you're like, what's a CRNA? Do you want to explain that to them, Everett?
So a certified registered nurse anesthetist. The new popular name, or newer popular name, is nurse anesthesiologist. Very controversial. But anesthesia is what we do, and we are nurses. And yeah, that's the short version of what a CRNA is. We basically they're the ones to, take care of you hemodynamically throughout operations, and also other advanced procedures that we do as well.
Okay, so definitely an advanced practice nurse role. And Nurse Julia, you are a family nurse practitioner, definitely an advanced practice nurse role. I am a clinical nurse specialist and a family nurse practitioner, advanced practice nurse role. Look at all this magic. I love it. So if anybody who's watching, please make sure to follow Everett, to follow Nurse Julia, and to follow me. We definitely are happy to share. Look, I'm just throwing them out there. They are too. And they are, because otherwise they wouldn't have been on here this evening, giving of their time, sharing their experience, their resources and knowledge. So we appreciate you very much. And we definitely will be following, liking, buying all of the products y'all put out there. So I want to thank you, Julia. And Everett, I'm like, do I call you Paramers, or do you call you Everett?
I go by it all.
Okay.
Either or.
So y'all call them both. I just wanted to make sure. But follow them on social media. Check out their websites. Follow them. They'll have some great tips and tools on their pages. And just want to support you guys. And thank you so much for the service that you guys are doing.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks. Okay, guys. So I am way over time, but this has been really, really good, because we've been going over so much great information. And I know you guys are so much in awe, like taking notes. You've been so much taking notes that you haven't been able to get all of your questions into the comment box. But no worries, because this video is going to be saved on nurse.org's Facebook. So if you don't already, you guys, make sure to visit nurse.org. They have tons of great information, articles, the We Did It video parody that I did of Kamala Harris is on their social media page, which, by the way, if you're not following them on social media, follow them on IG. And again, I have their Facebook page, which you're watching their Facebook Live right now. Make sure to follow and support nurse.org. They are a great organization that has tons of articles and information on nursing school, nursing tips, nursing school tips, how to become whatever role in nursing you want to be. They have so much good information out there. Lots of information on COVID, vaccine rollouts, and other important and trending topics that are important to nurses. So make sure you go there, follow and subscribe, so you can get their newsletters, so you can stay abreast on everything. But I definitely want to thank nurse.org for allowing me to have this platform and talk about important, interesting
things to nurses. That's why we call this Nurse News Now. We try to bring you the best in health and medicine news, trending topics, and discuss situations that are relevant, practical, and interesting to nurses. So we spent a majority of our time talking about travel nursing, which I thought was interesting. We have a new name for it. We're calling it pandemic nursing. And, you know, go and share the video, watch the replay, start our watch party, share it on your LinkedIn page, put it on YouTube, whatever you want to do, but share with your friends and colleagues, because this was some great information, especially if you were considering getting into the world of travel nursing and pandemic nursing, as we've called it. And also, please support the vitals, guys. You know, nurses, we are true life superheroes, and it's very cool that Allegheny healthcare system, as well as Marvel, decided to honor nurses with their comic book called The Vitals. Please make sure to follow and support and watch that. And again, you can watch the video by visiting ahn.org/The Vitals. You can get the downloadable comic book yourself. And we've talked about some other interesting tips, things around COVID, but you know what, the conversation is going to continue around COVID, both here on Facebook and as well on Instagram and on nurse.org. Lots of great information. I wish I could give it to you all now, but I'm already over time. And then as well, if we had more time, I would show you, the videos. You guys, I hope you guys watched the video, the interview that I recently did with Dr. Fauci. I was trying to play that this evening, but it's having, I don't know, StreamYard won't let me live right now and show the Dr. Fauci video. But there is an interview that I did with Dr. Fauci, and it's worth listening to. Definitely worth listening to. You can catch snippets of it on nurse.org's Instagram. It's on their Facebook. We just put the link to the article in the chat box there. And speaking of interviews, we got 2 interesting interviews that are coming out later this week. Today is Tuesday, so tomorrow, check out the interview. It'll go live on nurse.org's page and on their Instagram. I interviewed Tabe Masay. She is the nurse practitioner that gave President-elect Joe Biden his COVID vaccine. So I had an opportunity to talk with her about the vaccine, about how she was selected to do that, and just more about her role. And later this week, on Friday, we have another great interview. I don't know how many of you are Bachelorette fans, but one of the bachelors from The Bachelorette, I got a chance to interview him, Noah Erb. He is a travel nurse, ICU travel nurse, currently in the Colorado area. But check out an interview I did with him. Talked about how nursing and the skills, tools, and knowledge that he has prepared him for the role that he had on The Bachelorette. And he'll talk to us also about some other things that he's working on and his plans for nursing. So that will be interesting. And you know what? Allison, you are too kind. Allison says Saturday morning clinicals. I hope they bring that back to nurse.org. We'll have to talk about that. I used to do Saturday clinicals on nurse.org, an hour of a particular topic, but we'll see. Maybe we can bring that back. But I'm going to go. I've been talking your ear off. I could talk all night because I really enjoy chatting with you all. This is kind of like our break room outside of work. And it's an opportunity for me to just kind of share stuff. You know, we're so busy taking care of patients in the hospitals and our clinics and stuff like that. We don't necessarily have time to kind of talk about this other stuff that is pertinent to our practice and our personal life. And I hope that this show has been very, very helpful to you. It will be on, again, on nurse.org, as well as the Facebook. Please share it with your friends, your colleagues, and make sure to check out the interview I did with Dr. Fauci. Again, the link is here in our chat box. And let me see if I have. No, I was hoping that I could play the video, but the video wouldn't let me upload. But there you I definitely think that it's worth listening to. Dr. Fauci had some really great and inspiring things. And I pinned him up and I said, sometimes nurses, we feel unappreciated. Dr. Fauci, what do you have to say to that? And he had some really nice words to say. So that's it. I'm out of here. I'm Nurse Alice. This has been Nurse News Now. Make sure to check in every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on nurse.org's Facebook. And make sure to check out nurse.org and follow them on all social media platforms. And as well, follow me. I'm Nurse Alice at Ask Nurse Alice on all social media platforms and at asknursealice.com. So until next time, guys, take care of yourself, be safe, kind to one another, all those great things. And we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.